Three, two, one. Stop testing. 3, 2, 1. Stop testing. How's the sound, person? Have we stopped testing those god-awful nuclear weapons yet? We have? Well, that's great. Since we're on a roll, let me ask you this. Have we stopped driving fossil fuel burning, non-renewable machines that pollute to price gouging convenience stores to buy cancer-causing, chemically laced empty calories disguised as food that are wrapped in excessive packaging? Have we stopped doing that? We haven't? Well, bad habits are hard to break. Hi, my name's Jose. I want to welcome you to Politically Correct Cooking, a show where we get those bad habits and we break them. We break them in a very kind, loving, gentle, peaceful, nonviolent manner because, after all, we are politically correct. Now, we have a real special show today. It's special because in the entire glorious history of politically correct cooking, we've never had a show devoted entirely to food. This show is devoted to food, and because it is a special show, we had to look far and wide, high and low, for that special guest. Our guest tonight, a real special person, someone who has worked very hard. It's kind of like in Buddhism. You go up the ladders as you go through your lives trying to achieve nirvana. Our guest has achieved politically correct nirvana. Please welcome politically perfect Mark. Mark.
Hello, Jose.
Come on down. How you doing?
Thanks for inviting me on the show.
Well, we're glad to have you on the show. I've been really excited having you on as a guest, and we finally got you on. You can talk to us about a lot of things, but you wanted to talk to us about...
About food. Since this is a cooking show, we need to talk about food.
Okay.
And today I'm going to make one of my absolute favorite recipes, Kung Pao Tempeh, a variation on a Szechuan dish. Normally prepared as Kung Pao chicken, but since this is politically correct, we're going to have it vegetarian. And the vegetables that go with it are going to be mostly organic, no pesticides.
Well, I'll tell you what. Tell me what you want me to do, because I know that we have a lot of people, millions of people watching coast to coast.
Okay.
I want them to be aware, as soon as they're writing down the menu. You want me to cut these things
Before we
up?
get started making the meal, we need to start with the grain. And the grain today that I've picked is going to be quinoa. It's from South America. It's much like millet. It's very tasty. And it will cook while we prepare everything else.
Okay.
So,
we have a little boiling water. Add to it. Now, is this organic?
this is organic.
Okay.
From the Glut Food Co-op, my favorite.
Aptly named.
And for a little bit of extra flavor, we're going to put in some seaweed. Seaweed has got lots of trace nutrients and actually helps purge heavy metals, various toxins from the body when you eat it. And just put a little bit in here.
Well, that's good to hear. Because I know just going through day-to-day routines, people pick up a lot of toxins, even if, say, for example, they are vegetarians. They still pick up a lot of the pollution that's in the air that they breathe and stuff like that.
Plus it adds extra flavor.
Yeah.
And so anyway, next I'm going to ask you to start chopping the vegetables and the tempeh.
Now, this tempeh, do you want it thinly sliced, thickly sliced? How would you like it?
Well, it doesn't matter so much, but with wok cooking, it's very important to keep each piece roughly the same size.
How's that?
That's fine.
Okay.
So that they cook at the same rate. Because you don't want to have one piece cooked and one piece raw at the same time.
Good point. Now, the environmental significance of the meal we're going to have today.
Well, there are several different aspects of the meal. The most obvious is that it's a vegetarian meal, because meat production is one of the biggest sources of pollution in the United States. The impact of cows on the environment are just as severe here in the United States as in Latin America and Brazil. We hear a lot about environmental destruction in the rainforest for cattle production, but it's just as destructive in Kansas or in Virginia.
Now, a vegetarian meal, there's a lot of health reasons. For example, eating lower on the food chain, eating, a lot of health authorities say you should eat a low-fat diet. Maybe you would suggest possibly maybe a no-fat diet.
Well, you need a certain level of fat, but vegetarian sources of protein and non-saturated
How are these
fats.
cauliflowers? Okay.
They're
Slice
delicious.
Good? That size? Good size?
Perfect.
Okay.
One of the main problems with a fatty diet for eating meat is you have toxins that build up in the fat tissues of the different animals, and that is why a high-fat diet has been linked to cancers of various types, because the more fat in your diet, the more pesticides and other toxins in the environment you will be exposed to. And these build up in your body over time and have been linked with a variety of health diseases. For example, there was a study done that vegetarian women had 5% of the pesticide residues in their body that meat eaters did.
So, for example, that study that you just quoted, vegetarian women have 5% of pesticides residue in like their breast milk, or?
Right.
Now, they're vegetarians. How do they get this sort of, where do they get this 5% from? Say they want to take really good care of themselves and still
Sure.
pesticides come into their system somehow.
Most grocery stores, when you buy even supposedly healthy broccoli, it still has been sprayed with a variety of chemicals, sometimes even after they've been harvested. Some supermarkets even spray in the produce department.
So it gives them that nice shiny look.
Many things such as apples and cucumbers, peppers, they even get a coating of wax as if they were a candle. And there is no warning label usually put on any of these items.
Okay.
Well, it looks like the quinoa is boiling. We'll turn the temperature down, and it will cook while we cook everything else.
Now, we got the cauliflower and the
And
tempeh
you're going
all
to
set
need
to
to cut
go.
these into smaller,
Oh,
cut them into halves.
just let me know. You're the chef here. I will cut these in half
Then we can get started here.
Now,
One thing about pesticides is most pesticides have never been tested for their safety. We're using billions of pounds of pesticides every year in this country, but there's virtually no data to prove that they are safe to consume. Rather, pesticides are treated the way that people should be treated. They're considered innocent until proven guilty. Now that's fine for people being arrested, but that's not an adequate public health point of view. We need to give chemicals the Ed Meese test. They should be guilty until proven innocent.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Now, the pesticides were developed, I guess, talking to you earlier. They started off, say, as nerve gases for World War I, World War II, and these are just basically gases, pesticides against humans, but just reduced in power.
Well, a lot of pesticides, specifically what's called organophosphates like malathion, were derivatives of nerve gas developed in World War II. Other types of pesticides like DDT are similar to Agent Orange, which was used in Vietnam as a defoliant. And what our society has done is watered down pesticides, watered down these poison gases to make our pesticides. And pesticides don't know when to stop killing. It should not be surprising that substances designed to kill should also harm us as well as the bugs that we're trying to prevent.
Yeah, actually, a lot of the bugs are more resilient than humans are. So when they try to go after the bugs, they got to really go after them with a lot of...
And we're using billions of pounds of pesticides a year now, but we lose more percentage of our crops to insects than we did back in 1940 when these chemicals were being developed. It looks like the wok is now hot.
Okay.
We can start the cooking.
Well, pretty much, I think you have a good start here. I'm going to let you the honors of putting them in.
Okay.
And when you get done,
First,
I'll
we
do
take
a little
the onions.
The onions. Oh.
Onions, please.
Okay.
And while I'm doing that, if you could chop up the garlic.
I'll do that right away. Just thin slices of garlic.
Mm-hmm. Just chop them real fine, please. This provides the base of the meal.
Yow, this is a sharp knife.
Be careful. We want to keep this a vegetarian
We
meal.
want to keep this a vegetarian meal. Now,
Well, one thing about vegetarian food is a lot of people think, oh, well, vegetarian food is boring, or you don't get enough protein. It should be said that most Americans get twice the protein that they need in their diet, which is a source of some of our major health problems.
Why is
Whereas
that?
in
With,
third world countries, people want to eat more meat because they often don't get enough food. But most third world diets are actually healthier than American diets. It's just they don't get enough of the food that they need in order to eat. Like in China, for Chinese food, even when they do eat meat, it's usually just as a bit of flavoring for the food.
okay. How do these garlic bits look to you?
They look wonderful.
Okay. Do you need more onions or
No, I think we have enough onions, but now we
Okay.
can put the garlic in.
the garlic?
And when we start with the garlic, then we can put in the tempe and get the
And?
tempeh cooking. Tempeh takes about as much time to cook as tofu. It's very similar to tofu, but it's a little bit healthier. It's one of the few vegetarian sources of vitamin B12.
Tell me when you want the tempeh in.
Now.
Now? Okay. You want it all in? Okay. Well, I'm starting to smell some of the aroma. It smells good. Also, what was I going to say? The environmental impact, say, of meat production. I know that, say, in the local area, the Chesapeake Bay watershed area, there's a lot of pollution.
There's a lot of runoff, especially from the dairy farms of Pennsylvania. And one thing that most people don't realize about beef is that beef is the most wasteful in terms of water and grain production of any type of food. It takes 5,000 gallons of water to make a pound of beef. Now, you're wearing a shirt here today honoring Geronimo of the Apaches. Well, one of the main reasons that the Apaches fought back when their land was being invaded around the turn of the century was the influx of cattle into the desert. And the cattle ate the trees and caused the water tables to drop and contaminated their water supply.
So you're talking about a desert with little water to begin with, and when that water is gone, it's no wonder peoples were upset.
Half the water supply in the United States is used for animal agriculture. Half of our agricultural land is used for meat and chicken production.
Now, also, our diet, say for the average citizen, has really increased in meat consumption, too, say over the past 30, 40, 50 years or so?
Well, that was true until about the 1970s. Now it's beginning to decline a bit because people are becoming more health conscious. Even Republicans are starting to cut back on their meat production.
Well, that's big news, if you ask me. You want some more garlic?
Please.
Okay. Now, the broccoli and the cauliflower, we just kind of wait until later for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
These need to cook a little bit.
Now, in the production of food, say, for example, somebody wants to be a vegetarian. They go to the local store. They buy some vegetables. However, pesticides, a lot of pesticides in the food. A lot of the food that we have here is organic. What's the...
Well, unfortunately, there aren't that many stores that offer organic food, but there are a number of health food co-ops and buyers clubs in the area. And some of the grocery stores are starting to offer organic food because there's more of a demand as people become more aware and more conscious of what's happening in the food supply. Okay. Now the tempeh is starting to brown. I'm going to add some peanuts here.
Peanuts are a good touch.
And peanuts add extra flavor and
They're
variation
also
to the
high in
stir-fry. They're
protein.
high in protein,
Take
and
the
they're very
place
tasty.
of the meat or the chicken. Now, organic food, even if...
Put in some sauce here,
okay.
a little bit of vinegar.
It's smelling great, folks.
A little organic soy sauce,
Okay.
some hot sauce, Szechuan style.
Now, when do we add the broccoli and the cauliflowers?
That'll be in about 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to be doing here. While we're waiting for this to simmer or cook some more, we have some PSAs that we want to run. Folks at home, got some great PSAs we want you to take a look at. When we come back, we're going to be working with the broccoli and the cauliflower while this is cooking. So, don't go away. We'll be right back. Now.
Before 1945, chemical farming was unheard of in America. Now it's a fact of life and death. Wise up, America. Support organic farming.
What you don't know won't hurt you. Each year, over 5 billion pounds of toxic chemicals are released into the air in the United States. These emissions cause over 2,000 cancer deaths a year. No news is good news. Our nation is littered with over 300,000 hazardous waste sites, which leak poisons into the water supplies of 120 million Americans. Ignorance is bliss. 3 out of 5 Americans live in an area where the air is contaminated beyond federal health standards. Chances are, the air, the water, or the land where you live is endangering the health of you and your family. In 1986, a law was passed that gives you the right to know if the area in which you live is contaminated by toxic chemicals. Wouldn't you like to know?
I just love those PSAs. I especially love that pesticide PSA. I think it's great the way it shows what really happens to food.
Well, one other thing about the environmental impact of food is what type of packaging it comes in. Today, for the grains, I brought my own jar. It's how I shop at the co-op. Don't use any packaging for that. The broccoli didn't have any packaging. And
are we ready to put on the vegetables?
It's time for the vegetables.
Well, I'm looking forward to this meal. Whenever we have organic cooking on the show, the food is just so much better.
Well, and it tastes also better that you're not getting all this plastic in your diet. Most people don't realize that when you have all this food packaging, you're eating plastic in your diet, which is sort of like pouring gasoline into your dinner.
Well, I have some really great news for you. When we get done, in case there is any leftovers, and folks at home, if you're a part of the politically correct cooking crew, you get to eat the food that we serve here. But by the chance that there are leftovers, I have some saran wrap right here that we can wrap it.
Why did you bring that? This is brought by Dow Chemical,
the folks that brought us napalm
and Agent Orange.
And Agent Orange.
And it's
2 of the residues left over from Vietnam.
Well, now they've changed it slightly, and they've made plastic wrap out of this. This is called polyvinyl chloride, or PVC. It is the most toxic type of plastic that has been found anywhere. It's loaded with chlorine, and it's made from gasoline byproducts mixed together into a really toxic brew that is not politically correct. It's been linked to a variety of health problems, but besides causing cancer, it also, curiously enough, causes problems with the male reproductive system, causes testicular problems.
Uh-oh.
And maybe this is a good thing in a certain way, because if this type of pollution causes problems to the testicles, can we say that word on TV?
We can now.
Then maybe it will grab the attention of some of the policymakers, who are mostly men, of course.
Well, if it doesn't grab their attention, God only knows what will.
Because we're all sailing down that river of denial when it comes to the environment, and this has an ability to break through that. Perhaps in the future, PVC and other types of chlorinated toxins will be linked to premature male baldness. If that was to ever develop, the environmental problems would be solved that much quicker.
They'd be solved really quickly.
They would.
Now, the other thing that you mentioned about saran wrap is if you cover something in saran wrap, there's some sort of leaching that takes place?
Right. Plastics have what they call a migration, which is just a fancy word for stuff in the plastic gets in your food. And then when you eat them, they build up in your body and they don't get excreted out. Like with the styrofoam cups here, which are also a trademark of the Dow Chemical Corporation.
Like I go to the price gouging fast food stores, convenience stores, pick up coffee, or at a lot of places you go to those fancy espresso bars, you get a nice expensive cup of coffee served in styrofoam.
And the coffee is hot and it's very acidic, and it melts the benzene, which is another petroleum byproduct, out of there and into your drink, and then into your body, into your fat tissues and liver and so forth.
And it does not get excreted in normal bodily functions.
But because of this, there are now about 60 cities in the United States that have made it a crime to serve these in restaurants. In Portland, Oregon, they have an official who goes around and monitors restaurants to make sure that they're not using this, because it's really silly to have a cup that will last forever, is made out of toxic materials, just so you can have a drink of water. I carry my own cup with me when I go for a coffee or a drink, and I reuse it and wash it over and over, and it's not going to end up in the landfill.
The other thing I found out are the little plastic stirrers that you stir your coffee with. The heat forces the plastic to break down, so this little hot cup of coffee, you're actually having it laced with petrochemical byproducts.
Well, it could be done so that the plastics were made out of soybeans and other biomass. Henry Ford, for example, in the 1930s developed a car that was made out of soy plastics and metal, but he chose never to market it. There are non-toxic alternatives to many of these things, but it's going to require changes in habits and changes in technology and the political will to force the big corporations who are causing most of the toxics problem. They're going to have to be forced to change their ways, because the convenience of their short-term profit is in many cases preventing them from switching.
Broccoli is great. I love it. So how's this coming along?
This is just about done. We'll turn the heat down in here and let it simmer down. Check on the grains.
Now,
They're just about done.
what would you suggest to the viewers watching? They want to, say, reduce the amount of packaging they buy when they buy their food. They want to eat lower on the food chain. What can you tell them? Say, hey, if you do this and this, two simple steps, you can reduce the amount of waste.
There's many different ways that people can choose to reduce their impact. The average American uses between 100 and 200,000 calories of energy a day in terms of gasoline and food and transportation, electricity, many other things. The two big sources of that are the diet, mostly a meat-based diet. You can switch to lower on the food chain, eat more vegetarian type of diet. You can choose to use mass transit or bicycle instead of driving everywhere. You can learn more, become more informed, become involved, join an environmental group, become aware of what's going on in your neighborhood, understand what the politicians are doing, learn who these corporations are, support small business, vote with your dollars, support local food co-ops and farmers markets when they're in season. Ideally, you can even grow your own food in a garden.
Have your own garden?
Have your own garden, because food does not come from supermarkets, and there is nothing...
You mean to tell me the food doesn't come from little styrofoam things wrapped in plastic?
Well, sometimes it seems to, but there is no substitute for the taste of food when it's just been picked out of the garden and put into your wok or eaten fresh or however you choose to prepare it.
Well, I'm ready to try your creation here. Is it ready to go?
It is completely done.
We have some plates here just by coincidence. I definitely want to try some. It smells great. Folks at home, you don't know what you're missing. And now this is a grain from South America.
It's a Peruvian grain. It's very much like millet, and it is delicious.
Okay.
Organic food doesn't have to be iceberg lettuce. It doesn't have to be boring. You can have food that's just as nice as anything else you've been used to.
All right. Well, this certainly looks delicious. Let me try some here. Give you your plate here.
Thank you.
Now, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I had a wonderful time, and the food smells delicious. I can't wait to... I can't wait to try some more. This stuff is delicious. Folks at home, remember, support your local co-op. Don't panic.
Eat organic.
Eat organic. Thanks for coming on the show, Mark. Folks at home, see you later. Bye-bye, and bon appetit.
Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of green, for purple mountains, majesty, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining